want to welcome to the program Ted Hayes, who is Los Angeles community activist, had a column we're going to talk about here in a moment that was at thedailycaller.com. The New York Times is feeding racial animosity and ignoring racial healing. Ted Hayes is a member of the Project 21 Black Leadership Network's Advisory Council, longtime Los Angeles area activist, who's also run for public office on occasion. Ted, good morning. How are you, sir?
Good morning. Thank you very much for inviting me on to share my views with you and your audience. And by the way, I have good, wonderful friends in West Virginia. I love West Virginia. I learned so much when I was in West Virginia. I love you, and at least that area, and just look forward to coming back one day. And one final thing, can I give out the website for Project 21, which is project21.org, project21.org.
Absolutely, sure. Appreciate that. In your column that was at thedailycaller.com about the New York Times feeding racial animosity and ignoring racial healing, this is something that I think even the New York Times has fueled this, but I believe really got started again under the presidency of Barack Obama, where we just became so much more divided on things that had been, I think, on a healing path for a number of years. What's your thoughts on that?
I have to kind of agree with you on that to a degree. Barack Obama, of course, did not create the racial division in this country. He was born into it, but he agitated, being a prime socialist agent. He knew how to agitate it, and he did that. And, of course, unfortunately, we, the American people, because we do have this wound, we were not able to counter, because if you try to counter him, you'll be considered a racist. And because white people in this country do not appreciate being white and being who they are and their legacy, you got bowled over. And this started with Jesse Jackson shortly after the assassination of Martin Luther King, when white people in this country, hearts were bleeding. North, South, all kinds of people cared about this black man who was murdered because of his views and so forth. And instead of Jesse Jackson and the Christian ministers, the black Christian ministers of this country, reaching out to heal the wound, they agitated it and forced you into a state of what Jesse calls white guilt. And you haven't recovered from it yet. And I want to help you recover from it.
We had this summer, we had this, what happened at Charlottesville, and, a lot of racial tension at that point in time. And in fact, I'm 49 years old, and in my lifetime, I've never seen the racial tension. I mean, I was very young in the late 60s, so I've never actually seen and experienced on a national scale the types of tensions that there is now. I know we had some awful things that happened in this country, but it just seems like, for whatever reason, these things are really coming to light now, and there's out-and-out hatred. This column by this New York Times and this law professor, this New York Times columnist, "Can my children be friends with white children?" What? And he came to the conclusion that it was no. How can we be that way in this 21st century, 2017?
Because, again, this guy, either he's stupid, which is hard to believe because he's a college professor who teaches law at the Hebrew University in New York, or he's being paid by certain elements to create more division in the country, or he's very brilliant and trying to raise the question in this country, which I think he would know the answer to: are white people in the United States of America valid? Because if you listen to what he's saying, the only time that black people can feel safe in this country is when all white people have either died off or they become subjugated to black people, because we black people are genetically superior to white people, because white people are genetically inferior based on the history of white people towards black people, people of color. So if that is the case, then we need to question what is the validity of white people in America. And that's okay to have that conversation. I think we should have that conversation.
Yeah.
And let me don't leave you hanging there. What I'm saying is if white Americans, particularly white men, are such racist and Ku Klux Klanners and so forth, why are so many so-called people of color rushing into this country, legally and illegally, if we're such racists? I don't remember Jews trying to rush into Nazi Germany. They were running from Nazi Germany.
Right.
I see there's a jealousy by these colored peoples around the world of the white man for what you have been able to achieve in this country and around the world. It's jealousy.
Yeah. What do you make of the taking the knee protest of some in the NFL? That seems to be creating and fueling the animosity and the division rather than, and I think there are some sports stars, NFL, NBA, that are actually trying to come together with the community and fuel healing and get people to come together and talk and so forth, and that's good. But these protests and so forth, what do you make of that?
Well, excuse me. Again, Kaepernick, from what I understand from research we've looked into, he's a socialist agent. He knows exactly what he is doing. And on one hand, you cannot blame the scorpion for being the scorpion. What we must do is prevent ourselves from being bitten by the scorpion. It's like feces on the ground. Feces on the ground would draw flies and vector. And the only way to get rid of that is not by swatting at the flies, because you just, draw more. You get the feces up off the ground, disinfect the sidewalk or whatever, and the feces go away. Our country was born with a wound of chattel slavery in 1776. United States did not create chattel slavery. We inherited from the British Empire. Unfortunately, with that, though, we took the responsibility to rectify this thing. He talks about perfecting our union, and we did not do it. So subsequently, 740,000 innocent young white boys and men had to die in a civil war over this matter. Now, 150 years later, here we are again. And we need to close the wound. And one of the ways of closing the wound is diagnosing why the wound is there. But in short, those guys kneeling embarrassed me as a black man. My father served under that flag. He took other people's lives in World War II under that flag. He gave his blood under that flag. And when I see what these young black men are privileged do, it's just embarrassing to me.
Yeah.
But I understand it.
By the way, my dad died earlier this year. He served in World War II as well, and you and I happened to be talking on Pearl Harbor Day, which is the event that got the U.S. into World War II. So, I bet your dad did he have some pretty good stories to share?
That's one reason why I became a pacifist. But he would have a few drinks. My little brother and I would get on his lap and say, Daddy, what happened in the war? And I tell you, man, the things he told us, it just scared me to death, literally. And so I didn't go in the military, Vietnam, and I admit that, I was a coward. But I'm trying now, because I'm an activist for veterans and honor my father and my brothers who did serve in the military to protect our veterans, particularly the homeless veterans. So, it's a very serious thing with me.
Yeah, and by the way, we're talking with Ted Hayes, who's a member of Project 21 Black National Leadership, and the plan that you presented to a United States president back in the 90s, which I'm guessing was ignored. You presented to President Clinton, the National Homeless Plan. You created this.
Yes,
have you thought about this? Was actually there was resolutions that were passed by lawmakers and the city of Los Angeles in the late 90s. What about getting with President Trump on this?
In fact, that's what we're doing, and we're going to need your help in time to make that happen. I've been trying to get through to the president, I became homeless on purpose back in 1985, and I spent 8 years on the streets of Skid Row and the sidewalks, learning, feeling what this was about, and I found some answers, and now it's been the last couple of decades building this plan to present to a president. Bill Clinton would not accept it, nor Barack Obama, because it would undermine the socialist agenda. Because what my plan does is it empowers people at the bottom of our society to do for themselves. We talk about not a handout, but rather a hand up. I'm saying instead of a handout or a hand up, why don't we just simply, as the Bible says, strengthen the hands of the poor and the needy, that they may do for themselves and for society. So, we're working, vigilantly trying to get this to the president so that he can execute an executive order on the lines of the Marshall Plan at the end of World War II. And as you know, being a son of a veteran of World War II, the Marshall Plan rebuilt Europe within 10 to 20 years. It was up and running again, and we need that same kind of power back here at home.
Are you still live in Los Angeles?
Yes, sir. I'm in L.A. We call Los Angeles occupied L.A., occupied California, because we don't believe in illegal immigration. We believe that this is an international invasion. It's a non-military, civilian-based invasion of the United States of America. This has never happened, to my knowledge, in the history of the world, where people can just walk right in, civilians, and use the laws of that country to take that country down.
Yeah.
This is an invasion. So I live here in L.A. Yes, sir. Occupied Los Angeles.
I got to ask you this real quick before I let you go. I don't know if you're a basketball fan, but LeVar Ball pulled his son, LaAngelo, out of UCLA, and this is after he was suspended indefinitely because he was shoplifting in China, and President Trump rescued him, and then the Ball family seemed very ungrateful of that. What are your thoughts of that situation?
I think that this man is totally ignorant. He's really harming his son and other young men. And this is all on the premises that Donald Trump is a racist. If Donald Trump was a racist, he would have left them boys over there in China, and he did not. He did not have to do that, but he did. And this man is he's trying to – it's a fad. Being against Donald Trump as a racist is a fad. It's not real, and people in their heart know that this man is not a racist.
Give us that website once again, Ted.
Yes, sir. It's project21.org, project21.org. And if you want to check out some of my writings and philosophy and actions, you can go to tedhayes.us, tedhayes.us. And so I hope I can come back in the future and just share more in detail about the healing process. We must close the wound.
Absolutely.
If we don't close the wound, we'll continue to draw the socialist vector and other foreign elements into our country till we are destroyed. We must do that now.
Ted Hayes, member of Project 21 Black Leadership Network's National Advisory Council. Ted, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, West Virginia. We love you guys. Blessings to you.
Back in a moment on the Tom Roden Morning Show.